Okay, this is Daf Yud Gimel towards the end of the Maimer Ois Beis. Alter Rebbe explains that through Halosman, which is our address to Hashem, we draw down from above that Hashem becomes our God. Havaya Lekeinu. Havaya is access to us, like Shlomo Melech writes, via Chachma, which is predicated on Bittul. Because Ein Sof only rests on that which is open to it, Chachma, Kayachma, not about data and information, the willingness to be receptive to an idea. Even Bina will only rest when it is invested within Chachma. And Chachma is that which joins together and draws down the Ein Sof into all worlds, because all of them are made with Chachma. As David HaMelech writes in Tillim. And as we understand from Torah in every world, that since Ein Sof, which surrounds the world, that is, it encompasses from head to foot without differentiation, and this is the mashal of the Eitz Chaim of a great circle that surrounds a line and cannot be invested within any keli in a pneumistic way, because none of them have any stature before them. There is no comparison. Regarding which it says in Yirmiyah Hashemayim V'Yas Aretz, the heavens and the earth I filled, identically, heaven and earth. And this is all concealed because no thought can grasp it. And it's not invested in any keli that should be able to grasp it. Rather, through Chachma, the willingness to learn something completely new, in which this Or Panimi can be invested. And through that, it can have impact on each of the 9 subsequent spheres. And therefore, when a person is engaged in Torah, he draws down that Hashem should be revealed to him in a personalized way, in Or Pnimi, because Torah, of course, deals with Dvarim Gashmim here in Bria, Yitzira, and of course in Asiya. And that's what we grasp. And within it is the Chachmi law. The daf within it is the Or Ein Sof, this level of Or Pnimi that cannot be grasped in any keli, only through a manner of Or Makif. And this is what we mean when we say Havaya Elokeinu. And now we have Havaya Echad, because the term Echad is not talking about the singularity of Hashem, because there's nothing besides Hashem. So you can't say Hashem is one. That's shaykh only by something that is a composite of parts, and then it all becomes one. Like we say, Elu ve'elu tivrilakim chayim. These and these are the words of Hashem, the living God. But that's Elokim. Even though they appear to be disparate, we affirm that they are in fact one. But this refers rather to the midas, chesed and gevura. That is, that even though they are individuated, they seem even to be oppositional, because where you have chesed, you can't have gevura. Nevertheless, it's all one, because it draws down the Or Ein Sof that is invested within Chachma, down into Bina, and from there into the midas, that they should have a total bittul, and they should be subsumed, one within one, like it says in Divrei Hayomim, L'cha Hashem, to you Hashem, and list out the spheres. They are all buttal to you. They don't have an identity. They are not a composite of parts. And then it draws down this yichud into Baruch Shem Vod Mechusu Elam Voed, that is Baruch is the term. That means connection, that it is drawn down into Biyah, and into these Hechalis, it is also drawn down this unification, like it is L'mai L'natzilis, that is drawn down into the Or Ein Sof, that it should have total bittul, and through this we have V'yavtas Hashem Elikecha B'chol Me'adecha without limitation. That is, that we should go out of our kelim, out of our restraints, that the keli is that which is confining us. And through this, we have the entire parsha that is the detachment of the light from the keli. Now, this detachment is indicated in the number of 42. 42, as we mentioned earlier, represents rigid identification, like the 42 journeys of the Jewish people. And all elevation is achieved through this concept of 42. And again, here the Alter Rebbe simply states it as a fact. There is greater elaboration on this in the Maimer on Parshas Masai, which details the 42 journeys of the Jewish people. And that's why it has been established to recite Krishma Sha'alamita, which is the first paragraph of the Shema, which again contains the 42 letters. That is, the neshama elevates just before a person sleeps, and therefore it's appropriate that it should be predicated by the 42 words of the first paragraph of Shema, the 42 words of this 7 psukim of Ana B'Kayach, the 42 words that are a description in Sefer Yeshaya of the angels with the different wings. And again, each of these are comprised of 42. This is the Gevura quality within Chesed, that, as we know, Gvura and Chesed are not so rigid as to be separated, but rather they can sometimes be intertwined, because they all rest within the highest level. The first parsha of Shema is Chesed, where it talks about Biahafta, love, a keli of Chesed, but the Or is a Gevura, and therefore it evokes this form of journey as indicated by the 42 words, the 42 journeys, the 42 stages of separation. And now we understand the intent of Kriya Shema using this name, because the ultimate intent is that the tachlis upon which the whole world exists, and the whole world, even in the level of the chitzenius, is the Gufa Parsha. Those are the words, which is via Hafta, which is all about Chesed. That means to say that the chitzenius, that is what you see, is a description of love, via Hafta, Chesed. This is a level of Ava, it's a level of Chesed, but in Pnimius, the objective here is ultimately a Gevura level, that is, so that there should be a separation, like the flame desires to detach itself from the wick. This is what it says in Parshas Balak, that he crouches like a lion and a lioness. And the Gemara in Bracha says that there was a suggestion that this should also be included in the Kriya Shema, because of this pasuk, Kara Shachav, that it crouches like we say that when we lie down, same word, Shachav, that Hashem will guard us when we lie down and we rise up, and there will be comforted, as Rashi explains there in the Gemara. And in the Medrash in Yalkut, it explains that they stand like lions that grab, that they sort of snatch away the Kriya Shema, because this level of the lion is this level of Gvura in the Keli of Chesed. Like Rav Moshe Zakata writes in Parshas Tzav, the fire that's on the altar was in the form of a lion, because Aryeh, lion, is the gematria of Gevura. And like it says in Yecheskel, in the vision, that the Pnei Aryeh, the face of the lion, was to the right. Even though right is Chesed and the lion is Gevura, it's this intermingling. And this is what it means, they stand like lions. That at Kriya Shema, we stand like lions in the first paragraph, where we say V'yahafta, to the total istalkus, the total going out of any limitation, which is indicated in the commandment and the obligation to love Hashem b'chol miyadecha, which includes everything about. And this is all in the first parsha, which is about the passion, the ratzah. In the second parsha of Kriya Shema, V'hayim Shemaya, there is the shuv, that is the draw down iris into kalim. And therefore, in the second parsha, it says you should love Hashem with all your heart and all your soul, but not b'chol me'edechem. It doesn't have that third level, because here it's the opposite. The keli is for gvura. You should be cautious lest Hashem become angry. But the pnimius is the name of 72, the 72 letters of the second, 72 words of the second paragraph, which 72 is associated with chesed, that is divided up into 72 different bridges. And again, the 72 words in V'hayim Shemaya, and the Alter Rebbe makes a statement here that 72 is associated with Chesed without elaboration. Why is it referred to as a bridge, 72 bridges? That just like you make a bridge across a body of water, and it's made from a whole bunch of different sections so that the water can go over each section and not go over it entirely and drown the person, but there should be a separation. So too, there are 72 bridges, 72 forms of individuated chesed, distinctions, that there's all different aspects of it. For example, on the first state, it was yoim, there was or, chesed, and there was mayim, chesed. There was, the color was love and was white, and so on, all the different details associated with chesed. Chesed is associated with light, with water, with white. So to above. In the songs of the angels, the tzaddikim sit and they benefit in the higher level on Gan Eden, in the 310 worlds, and so on, all these different details without end. They are all subsumed, though, in these original 72 pathways. But chesed is one essential, undifferentiated, simple pashut concept that the worlds cannot sustain. There needs to be tzimtzum and ishtalshalis, Gan Eden, Elyain, and Gan Eden, Natachtain, in order that they start to individuate themselves so that the world can have a sense of existence. And that's why 72 in the three psukim of Vayisa, Vayavai, and Vayet, this is in Beshalach and in the Zayar and so on, there are in these three letters the gematria of 216, which is the gematria of Gevura. Because chesed, when it comes through gevura and the tzimtzum, you have like the gevura of rain that we mentioned. Ata gibor in the davening, you recognize from Shemona Esrei, the bracha for rain is introduced with the description of Hashem as gibor. That rain is associated with gevura. Rain sustains all of life. Why then is it associated with gevura when it gives life to plants and vegetation? Because rain has to come in individuated drops. There has to be distinction in the rain. Otherwise, you get a flood and nothing can exist. It will destroy the world. And the world's intent is to be able to exist and to have kalim. And that's why it necessitates gevura, so that the water comes in individuated drops. The drawing down of this light into the keli that is mentioned in the second parsha of Kriya Shema, like it says, b'chol nafshechem, that is, that it should be a total dedication and no desecration, that we should have no hollowing out, no interruption of the resting of the divine light that is drawn down onto our existence via the dedication of the first parsha, when we say b'chol me'edecha, with even including Mesiras Nefesh, that draws down this level of Orein Soif, even into the levels of 72, which represents again the idea of gevura. And the pasuk says, "V'nesati matar artzechem," I grant rain in this land. Matar is 44. Artzechem is Dalid Mem Nun. That is, v'nesati. It should. We might have anticipated it would say v'nosan Hashem, not I will, but Hashem will. Why does it say v'nesati in the first person, even though it's Moshe Rabbeinu who is the narrator? Because Hashem is speaking through Moshe Rabbeinu. Nevertheless, we don't find it anywhere else. Why does Moshe Rabbeinu put it in the first person as if he is it when it's Hashem? Only can because now it has manifested itself in the gevura quality of Ayin Beis, which is the drawing down of the infinite into the Kalim. And every person can say this about themselves. Since in the first parsha we spoke about Mesiras Nefesh and the subsumption of Orein Soif Mamish, we draw down this Orein Soif into the soul that it should be in all of his very being, and there should be no interruption, that there should be the drawing down of this Ayin Beis, the words that I place in your mouth, my words literally in your mouth. And these are the three psukim, Vayisa, V'yava, V'yet, that are straight, reversed, and straight, that there has to be from above to below, then below to above, and then it continues on in this healthy, repetitive cycle that we have all three of these processes or kavod.
So we're starting Likkutei Torah, Parshas Eikev, where the Torah talks about the man. Vayachilcha es haman, the man hodiacha. Hashem gave you the man in order to notify you. Ki lo alalecha lavad yichya adam. A person doesn't just live from bread. Ki mal ki poitze pi Hashem yichya adam. People live from the source of the word of Hashem that gives them life. So the Alter Rebbe begins to explain the meaning of the man. What is the spiritual significance of the man? And he says that man, as we know, is associated with tal, with dew. It says in the Parshas Beshalach, in the Parsha of the man, but tal shichvas hatal. And we know from Chazal that this is the tal which Hashem will use to be mechayim meisim. Right? The Gemara says in Chagigah that when Hashem will be mechayim the meisim, when Mashiach comes, he'll use tal. And it says in Chassidus that tal corresponds to the inyan of rachmim rabim, the great compassions. There's rachmim, stam rachmim, and there is rachmim rabim, the infinite compassion. It's a darge in Elokus which has the power to revive the dead. And that rachmim rabim is connected to the concept of tal, of dew, which is in turn connected to the inyan of man. The man is connected to tal. As we say in davening, mechayim meisim barachmim rabim, that chiyas meisim happens through rachmim rabim, not stam so rachmim, but when there is a revelation and exposure of the many great mercies of Hashem, this madrege, that's when chiyas meisim happens. So we have tal and man and chiyas meisim are all interconnected. So the Alter Rebbe says, what is the inyan of rachmim rabim? What is the concept of rachmim rabim? So first he starts off by saying a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, v'zaratis beis Yisrael zer adam zer behema. that Hashem says, I planted in the Jewish people 2 types of seeds, meaning the 2 types of neshamas. There's the neshamas that are called Adam, human neshamas, and there's a neshamas called Prince Behema neshamas. So we understand what that means. So the Rebbe first prefaces a pasuk in Yecheskel, where it says, Pnei Ayel Yamin, but the Merkava, Yecheskel describes the vision of the Merkava. So he describes that there were 4 faces, and one of the faces was the Aryeh. And the Aryeh, it says, was on the right side. Now, of course, we don't mean, it's not a geographic description, but it means spiritually. You mean the right side is chesed, ava, love. As we know, right is ava. So we see that the lion, the Pnei Aryeh, is associated with love. But then there's another pasuk in Amos, Aryeh shoak milo yira, that when the lion roars, who is not afraid? So that means that the Aryeh inspires yira. So how can we reconcile these 2 psukim? Is the lion on the right side, which is ava, or is it inspiring yira? And we also know that the Yomim Neroim are associated with the name Aryeh. As we know, Aryeh is oitzis yira, and it's also, if in Shlosh says that Aryeh is Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippurim, and Hoshana Rabbah. The word Aryeh is Rosh Hashanah of these 4, which is Yom Neroim, the time of judgment. So how do we reconcile these 2 psukim? So he explains like this. It depends from which perspective we're talking about. Aryeh is the Gilui of Hashem, the way he's Megala, his greatness, his full greatness, over and beyond the capacity for us to take. And when that happens, Hashem's greatness, the way he is, unadulterated, unrestricted, why does Hashem do it? Because he loves us. When you love someone, you want to be close to them. And you don't want to restrict anything of yourself from them. Same thing Hashem, because of his great love, he's revealing himself, and that's Aryeh. Aryeh is the inyan from Yamin, of love. From Hashem's perspective, it's an exposure of his right side, his love. But when how does it affect us? We are on the receiving end. For us, it inspires yira. Why? Because for us, when we are so overwhelmed by such a level of degree of divine greatness that is so overwhelming for us, it's totally crushes us. We become totally in awe and trepidation. We're not able to handle it. So that's why Aryeh is also called Aryeh Yishak Milo Yira. Who will not be inspired with awe, meaning that the recipient, the one who's on the receiving end of that revelation, is inspired with Yira. And the Rebbe, this is a marshal for that, in Chassidus of a Choisem Boilet. Now, if you take a seal that has letters that are bulging out of the seal, right? They're 3-dimensional, and you put them into wax, you stick them into wax, then in the wax, it's the opposite. It's not bulging out. The letters become, etched inside the wax. In other words, the source of the seal has the letters sticking out, right? 3-dimensional, and when it ends up being stuck into the shaiva, it does the opposite. It does an impression in the letters are impressed inside the shaiva, inside the wax. So the same thing, the greatness of Hashem. When Hashem's greatness is revealed, the effect it has on us is inyan from bittul, inyan from shrinking, in impression. Our egos are being impressed upon and shrunk and restricted because of the awe. So that's the reconciliation of the 2 psukim. And this is the inyan where it says that when Jidden brought Kabbalah to the Beis HaMikdash, it says that the fire came down in the form of a lion, and it consumed all the kabbanas. Now, we know the kabbanas represent the fat and the blood of a person, which is the tainug of Inyanim Gashmim, that you want to sacrifice and elevate to Kedusha. And the same thing, you took the fat and the blood of the animal that you burned on the Mizbeach. That means that the Aryeh, that the revelation of Aryeh, the godless of Hashem that is Gala on the Mizbeach, it burned and consumed the ego, the whole presence of the Chelev and the Dam that makes up the self, the ego, of the animal. So that's the inyan that when the Aryeh is revealed, the inspiration in the receiving end is the inyan from Yira and inyan from Bittul. Now, where does the world get then the Ava? If Yira they get from Aryeh, although the Aryeh comes from Hashem, it's the Ava of Hashem. But what inspires in us is Yira. How do we get Yira, Ava? That's Minas Moel, ironically from the left side. The left side, although is associated with Yira, with Gvura, left side is Gvura. Gvura is connected to Yira. So how can we get from Pnei Shoir, from the bull's face, which is the other face of the Merkava, we get Gvura, we get Ava. This is Shoir is the inyan from Gvura, like a bull, like a raging bull. So the answer is, like we said before, when there is a great, overwhelming revelation and unrestricted exposure of the godless of Hashem that inspires in us Yira, because it's so overwhelming. But when Hashem restricts somewhat and holds back some of that greatness and limits his exposure to something, to a level which is we're able to take, that leads to Ava, because now we're able to encounter this revelation and internalize it in the pneumias, and then that causes a certain of love, of a desire to come closer to Hashem. And then the Alter Rebbe proceeds to explain that this kind of love that we get from the Pnei Shoir is called Avas Olam. Why? Because a person, the way a person reveals that love inside of himself is when he is mizboinen. So he meditates on the fact that that Hashem embedded His life, His energy, the Chayis Elokus, in the worlds, in the limited worlds, and that whatever we receive, we can observe with our eyes and with our minds, is extremely limited. That causes in us, elicits within us, a tshuka, a great desire to be subsumed in the Achdus of Hashem. The way Hashem is beyond creation, because we see only a glimmer of Him, and that gives us a taste of the greatness of Hashem, and we have a desire to be embraced and subsumed by His essence. And that's the meaning, as it says, Al Domiloch, I mean, it says in Tehillim, Al Domiloch, Kori Todim L'Shach, the neshama cries out all the time and cannot be satisfied, because it wants to be completely subsumed and incorporated in Hashem's infinite essence. It's the same thing when a person is mizbeinen with his seichel, the great hell of Hester of Elokus, and how Hashem took the Chayis Elokus and put it into Olam. That's called Avas Olam, because you mizbeinen how he took his Chayis of Elokus and vested it in Olam, in a place of hell and Hester. That elicits this great shukah, this desire to be completely subsumed by Hashem. He says this is called the Prince Behema, an Ava Zuta, a smaller Ava. It's an Ava that is extrapolated from these bodies in the limited worlds that we have access with our senses. And from that meditation on the Chayis Elokhi that's in the world, which we can access through our understanding, we derive, it elicits within us a great desire to discover more. We want to discover the essence of Hashem. And that causes a great shukah. That's the inyan from the neshamas that are called P'chinas Behema, that they discover and they develop Ava, and Ava Zuta based on Oilamis. The Chayis Elokhi that's embedded and hidden within Oilamis. But then there's P'chinas Adam, a neshama that's called the Adam, because it says in Yecheskel, Admus HaKisei, Adam. There was the image of Adam on top of the throne, which were carried. The throne was carried by the four images of the Pnei Aryeh, Pnei Shoir, and then there was on top there was the Pnei Adam. It says this is referring to the masters of Torah. It's like a person who has Ramach Evorim and Shesar Gidim. That's what the goof of a person is made from, and whereas an animal doesn't have that amount. And we have mitzvahs. Torah consists of mitzvahs, Rabach mitzvahs, which corresponds to different parts of a person's body. And that Torah, which is the infinite Adam, is higher than Ava V'yira. It's higher than the Ava that we get from from which the neshamas, which are called behema, get from their rizboneness and chayis of the Eilamis. Because the Torah is much higher than Avayir. The proof of that is, Avayir is called Gatfin, only wings that carry the Torah up. They're like accessories to Torah. Torah is greater than that. Torah is Hashem Himself. Hashem is beyond creation. When a person learns Torah, he connects with Hashem on a much deeper level than the connection that the neshamas of Behema connect to. Now, the Rabbi continues in his base and says that it says, "Vani bar v'leidor." The Melech says, "I'm foolish and I don't know." Behemoth yisi imach. I'm like behemoths with you. Behemoth loshen rabim. That means that there's two types of behemoth. There's a behemoth which is lower than the darg of Adam, as we said before. Zera Adam, Zera behemoth. Zera behemoth is a person whose consciousness is much lower than the consciousness of a person who is connecting through Torah. But then there is a dark of Behema which is higher than Adam. That's why it says Behemais. David says that I'm with you on different levels. There's a lower Behema and there's a higher Behema. And the higher Behema is higher than Adam. It's called Behema Rabbi in Behema Rabba. And this is even Ava Rabba. There's Ava Zuta, the small Ava, and there's Ava Rabba. This is a type of Ava that is not controlled by the mind and by the logic, by the understanding, by the isbadnus of a person. It comes from the etzam neshama, is higher than seichel, and it's a das, a consciousness that is higher than the consciousness that a person gets from being misboinen in Eilamis, in the chayis lakim, which is in Eilamis. It's a consciousness where a person is masik soiv kol almin. The darga of alakus, where nothing has any meaning. It's kula kava kalokashiv. Everything is bottled completely to alakus. There's no mitzias other than alakus. And from there comes the inyan for Rachmim Rabim. So this is all an introduction to explain what Rachmim Rabim is. Rachmim Rabim is that darga of alakus which is higher than Eilamis, where the whole inyan of Eilamis is kaloch hashiva, is like meaningless because it's a be'ein completely to Eilamis. And that's where Rachmim Rabim comes from. And it's like he says, it's like and why is Rachmim coming from such a lofty place, such a transcendent place, which transcends and is totally removed from the whole inyan of Eilamis? It's like a melech. Gives a mashal from a melech. A melech who's so exalted and over and beyond the level of the rest of the nation, and even all his sarim, even the ministers that are important people in the government, even they are considered to him like as if they're nothing, and they're equal to the rest of the masses, because the melech is so meroim and misnase above the people. So that's why we find by melech, Dafke melech has more than midas arachmanas, because to him everybody is so poor and so small and so impoverished of any resources that he feels sorry, he feels rachim, compassion, because the nature of somebody who is great and hot and elevated to feel great rachim for those that are lower and the lower they are and the further away from his level, the more rachmanis there is. Same like the Eirin Sof, Dafke the Eirin Sof Baruch, where everybody's bottled by Metzias there's no Metzias of world other than Elokus. And then we say, Kilo Chashiv Kamei, Dafke there, even the Eilam Esalyonin, the Alter Rebbe says, Shamayim Lozaka Be'einav, it says in Eikev, that even the heavens have no schus in front of his eye. That means they're all Kilo Chashiv. Dafke there comes the greatest Rachmim and the Rachmanis, because they're all perceived as Shvolim and Gruyim Betachos HaShiflus. Compared to Hashem, they're the lowliest of the lowliest. The Rebbe said that even Gan Eden Elyon and Gan Eden Tachten is fitting that Hashem Shehad Rachmanis, because even Gan Eden is Tzadikim Yoshev and enemy Ziv Ashchina, because even Gan Eden Elyon is only in the Ziv, it's only a glare, a glimmer of a Lakus. And merely compared to the Lakus itself, it's nothing Koloch HaShiva. It's only a Ziv HaOrav, it's mispashet from Hashem. But he himself is not shaykh to say the inyan from Ziv, because everything is bottled. Even Gan Eden Elyon is bottled by Metzias to him, and they're all incorporated in his achdus, and there's nothing separate from him that you could say like it's a separate Metzias of a Gan Eden. There in Mitzad him, the way he is exalted beyond creation, everything is incorporated in him. It is not separate. And even the darg of Eden. It is Gan Eden. Eden, we know, is a higher darg in Gan Eden Gufa. It says in Kabbalah that Gan is Bina and Eden is Chochmah. And even Chochmah, which is the most pristine sphere of all the spheres, Tachlas HaBitl, even that is compared to Atzmas Ein Sof. It's B'Chochmah Asisa. Kulam B'Chochmah Asisa. It's like the level of Asiyah. Because to him, even Chochmah Datzilas is nothing. It's like an Asiyah Gashmis. And therefore the Rachmanis is great even on Eden, on Chochmah. And this, his bonus, when a person is misboinen, what is Rachmim Rabim? Rachmim Rabim it comes from such a madrege where everything is kalo chashiv. And when a person is misboinen, the person can be ma'ira Rachmim Rabim on his neshama. That means on the nitzal kus which is inside of him, which is a chelik el kami mal mamish, that his neshama comes on the one hand from a lakus mamish, from a dark of a lakus which said niyavai lo shenisi, where Hashem is beyond change, everything is bottled bevutal to him. Everything atem kodim shenivroilam atem achar shenivroilam. That means that there everything is bittul b'mitzias al lakus, and that's where his neshama comes from that darga. And yet the neshama came down and came into Olam Hazeh, and now through his behavior and his actions, the neshama became attached in the vanities of Olam Hazeh, which is Mailim and Master on the emes, on the light of truth. And he's preoccupied with the nonsense and vanities of Olam Hazeh, which is Mamish Kalo Chashiva, Mamish, is Kalo Mamish. So what the Rachmanis it is on him, when a person realizes the great Rachmanis based on the Yerida that his neshama had. And I feel like even if a person is not preoccupied with Havle or Olam, with the nonsense of the world, but let's say he's learning Torah, but he's learning Torah with a feeling that he's becoming something, right? He feels like he enjoys the learning because it adds to his metzias. He becomes a metzias dovo. So this becomes, as the Gemara says, tachas Hashemish, that the Torah doesn't go up to the higher Olam, because it stays down here under the sun. It's called Hakel Hevel V'Roz Ruach. It's like all evil and vanity. The Torah remains stuck in Golus, Dolamato. When a person is misbeinen, how much his neshama has come down, and now through his behavior, even dragged the neshama even to lower conditions, right? Where everything is Hevel Avolim, Shem when he's misamek in this inyan, and everybody knows by himself his own personal failings, which further down drags the neshama down lower and lower, that will cause him to be ma'ira rachmim rabim, in great compassion and mercy from Hashem. When he sees how he has gone down to such a lowliest of the lowliest levels, so far away from Alakus. And when he's ma'ira rachmim rabim, this will, through crying and being ma'ira rachmim rabim, begging Hashem's mercy, it will lift him up, it will give him new chayas. Because the yerid of the neshama down in Havle Avolim, the vanities of the world, is like Misa. Because you lose the chayas of Alakus. And this will bring Tchias HaMesim. The Rachmim Rabim brings Tchias HaMesim Beruchnias. Right? He becomes revived, his neshama becomes revived. He said that even Tchias HaMesim, we said before, come through Tal. Ki Tal Eireis Talecha, it says. Right? The Tal of light is your Tal. And this is what it says in Kabbalah, Tala the not of Mepumid Atik. This is Tal that drips from the mouth of Atik, so to speak. That means that the Gilui of Atik, which is the Gilui of Tal, is as such a Izgalas Alakus, with such intensity, with such abundance. It comes straight from the source of life, of Ein Sof. And when that's revealed, is Veniglu Kved Hashem, Hashem's glory becomes revealed so much that if even in a place where there's before that Gilui, there was only a little bit of chayas, that we can be ma'orer from above, you awaken and listen from above, that this little bit of chayas becomes incorporated in echot and becomes bottled in its source, just like a candle becomes subsumed inside a larger flame, and all the nitzutzes gather from all the different places, And through that, they can receive great chayas, intense chayas, that is powerful enough to be chayim mesim, where we say that even a mace has kisted the chayusa. There's a little bit of drop, a glimmer of life left, which sustains the body for a while. So even a place with this tiny fraction of glimmer of life will be inspired and engendered with a whole new level of life, because it comes from Rachmim Rabim, where life is very intense and can be mechayim mesim. And it is begashmis also, but also Baruchnis, a person can be mechayim his nefesh. When he feels so alienated from Elikus, that's also called chiyas hamesim. The sham is attached to Havle Ha'olam and is considered like a mace. As it says, "V'yitin es Rishoyim kivrei," that the Rishoyim are called like dead that are buried. And as Chazal say, Rishoyim achayim kruim mesim, and the Afila the chayes which they have is considered like mace, like dead. And so they say is Rachmim Rabim and Avodah, when a person is Ma'ir Rachmim on his neshama. He's Ma'ir and he gathers all the chayes from everywhere. The kisted the chayusa that's still there in his neshama, and he brings it up to its Makav V'Sheirish, and for that he gets chayes Rav, a lot of chayes to revive his neshama. So now we explained the yin of Rachmim Rabim. Now Rachmim Rabim is the source of Tchias HaMesim, and that's connected in from Tal. Tal is this darga of Rachmim Rabim. Now he says like this, that the Hamshoch of Rachmim Rabim in the world to do Tchias HaMesim, both Begashmis and also in Avodah, Baruchnis. But it cannot come in its plain form. It has to be mislabish in Yud Gimel Midas Rachmim. Yud Gimel Midas is already Midas. Midas are measured. So Rachmim Rabim is Bligvul. That's the way the Rachmim is in its absolute unadulterated form, which is Bligvul. But in order to be Mizgal in the world, it has to go through the channels of Yud Gimel Midas. Because otherwise it can't be mislabish in the world. It needs the tzimtzum of the Yud Gimel Midas, and then it can come down into the world. And these 13 Midas correspond to the 13 Shvatim, the Yud Bei Shvatim and Shevet Levi, which is the 13th. So this is why during Slichas we say, and the Yud Gimel Midas from Rosh Chodesh Elul on, and I mean not only Slichas, but we say from Rosh Chodesh. Some people say Slichas from Rosh Chodesh Elul, but this is the Zman of his Eireres of Prinis Rachmim Rabim. And this is why it says in Tehillim, Rachmecha Rabim Hashem, Hashem Yerachmim are incredible, they're great, they're in abundance. As your justice, or as you, according to your judgment, give me life. What is the meaning, the connection? Rachmecha Rabim Hashem, through the Rachmim Rabim, you can bring down chayes, even in a place which is mishpotecha, where there is judgment, where there is limitations. And that can bring chayin, you can bring new life to that place. That's even Tchias HaMesim. And as we say also, Kosveinu l'chaim tovim, transcribe us, or inscribe us for chaim, for good life. Right? That means we should revive us, that or a little bit of life that's left from all this distance from Elikus should be revived and elevated back to Achdus Hashem. This is also the meaning what it says in Yeshaya, Ki Avram lo yadanu v'Yisrael lo yikarenu. We don't know Avram. Avram doesn't know us, and Yisrael doesn't recognize us. Ata Avaya Avinu, but you Avaya, you are our father. So what's the meaning? What does Avaya Avinu mean? Avinu, father, is usually someone of Rachmim. Father is associated with Rachmim. That's what he said. It says, Avinu Malkeinu. We plead with Hashem to mo'er the Avinu, the Rachmim, to us and to lift us up from our challenges. And we say that this Ato Avaya Avinu is Avram. We're not concerned with. Yisrael, who do we want? Havaya Avinu. That's higher than the others, in other words. Right? We're dismissing Avram and Yisrael, and we want Havaya Avinu. And he said, because it says in Parshas Ve'erah, Shmi Havaya lo nidaitu lahem, that for the others, Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Ve'erah, they did not have a hasaga in the Shem Havaya. Shem Havaya is higher than the others, than dark of the bittul of the others. They didn't have a connection to the Havaya. This is the Yin Rachmim Rabim, which is higher than Oilimus, which is higher than dark of others. And this is what it says, that the man, which is connected to tal, which is also synonymous with rachmim rabim, asher lo yodun avasecha. It says also that the man is, your fathers don't know. What means they don't know it? That means there's a dark of a lukus, which the others didn't have any idea in it. And then the pasuk concludes, they gave you the man to teach you that not the lechem alone a person lives by. So the Alter Rebbe explains, so Chazal say, lechem is Torah. And Chazal tell us that anybody who says, I'm just going to learn Torah, I feel a Torah in it, then he doesn't really have Torah. Why? Because Torah is be'emes halukus. The Torah, the way we understand it, is only a lavush to something which is infinite. It's a lakus. So a person has to know, not just take the Torah as a lavush, only to see the garment of Torah. He has to be connected with the premise of the Torah, the lakush of the Torah. In this way, just on the bread, on the Torah itself, the seichel of Torah, you cannot live from. Right? Who cannot live from Adam? Not just the person down here, but also the Adam Ilosh Alakise. Because Yidden, Mamshech Amshachas Lamaila, in Adam Elyon, Hayir Amshachas, in Adam, as it says, Yisrael Vafanas of Yidden, feed Avim Shamashamayim Kavyochel. That means that Mamshech Greder Amshachas, in the Adam Shaltus Akise. So Yichya Adam is only from Torah that you learn with the awareness that the Torah is Moitze Piavai, Kalchol Moitze Piavai, that the Torah is Moitze Piavai. It's not just the Seichel of Torah. That through his boneness, that his masculine, his boinen, that the Torah is Moitze Piavai, is Hashem's words. It's a Reis V'Kushbir Kul Echad. Only then is Yichya Adam can you be Mamshech all the Amshachas with the Torah. And this is the concept of Tal Torah. So Torah is also connected to Tal, to Dinan. So because Torah is Shmoker and Sheirish is also from the same place as Tal, which is Din Verachmim Rabim. And it says in Chazal, Kol ha'isik v'Torah Tal Torah mechayehu. The Tal of Torah gives them new life, which is the Din V'Tchias HaMesim, which comes from Prenaseh V'Kalamin. But what? Torah, on the other hand, is being Nizgashim in Oises Gashmis. Because where do we see Torah? We see Torah in physical Oisias. This is to teach you that through the man you see also what Torah really means. Because when you see the man on the one hand is Tal, higher than the Ovis, in Yifin Rachmim Rabim, right? In Yifin Atik, higher than Olamis. And at the same time, it came down in the form of a physical man that people were able to eat and crush and make into food, like physical stuff. So it's like a dichotomy. Yes, on the one hand, it's Tal is connected. It's the essence of Tal is the highest, loftiest, right, most pristine level in Elokus, the Inyan Makav Rachim Rabbi, which is Bligvul, and yet it was embedded in a physical food. Same thing with Torah. The Eibusha said that the man is teaching you that a person has to be aware. Torah is not what it appears on the surface, like physical oisias and letters and ideas and information. Torah be'emes is beligvul be'etzem. It just came down in the form of oisias. And from the man we can learn that the Torah is a moitze piavaya. It's not just the lechem, but it's moitze piavaya. It comes from its divine source in the highest darkness.